Good afternoon. Happy Sunday. Hope everybody's doing all right. Hope you've all had an awesome day. My name is 12 Gauge, and this is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. Today I want to talk about federal subpoenas and grand jury federal subpoenas. This is not going to be a long video, but hopefully it gives you a little bit of an insight on what these things are. And it also will give you an understanding on how in another case, these things have been having questions surrounding them. So I want to start by playing this video. And this case has to do with federal subpoenas, and then we will go over it.
Mysterious case of Tabitha Tutors.
Tonight, we've learned federal subpoenas have been issued for two people to answer questions about the Nashville girl who vanished more than a decade ago. News Channel 5's Nick Barra spoke with the girl's parents.
They hope this helps answer the question, what happened to their daughter?
Detectives are certain when it comes to Tabitha Tutors, someone has to know what happened to that little girl in this neighborhood. And now, with the power to issue federal subpoenas, those who may know something will finally have to talk. Tutors disappeared in April of 2003. She left home in the morning to catch the school bus, but never boarded and has been missing ever since. For years, investigators have chased down lead after lead coming up empty.
It's like elevator. You go up and down, up and down, up and down. But we've learned through the years now to just deal with it.
For Tabitha's parents, it's been frustrating. So too for cold case detectives. They've often wanted to question many persons of interest, but couldn't because they would not cooperate. No more, thanks to the FBI and U.S. Attorney. News Channel 5 has learned federal...
So think about that, what he just said. They wanted to question people of interest, but they wouldn't collaborate or cooperate. So in doing so, they did a federal subpoena on these individuals, so they'd have to cooperate and answer questions.
Federal subpoenas are now issued for two people who may know what happened to Tabitha.
There's somebody out there that knows something, but they don't want to come up and say. And this here might be one of them that knows something.
The subpoenas stem from an incident out of state where an individual under arrest told police he knew something about the disappearance of Tabitha Tutors. He later tried to change his story, but now he and his girlfriend will answer questions before a federal grand jury, this under threat of perjury.
So think about the Koberger case. If they were filing a federal subpoena, he was under arrest eventually for a crime of suspected quadruple murder and burglary. So if they had any kind of information that linked him to another crime, and let's say that it was in Pennsylvania or it was across the state line, then more than likely, if he didn't want to answer, they could bring in the federal government to subpoena him to get some kind of answers from him.
They lie.
They're going to have to tell.
Is this the big break in the case or another dead end? We'll see, but this is the first step toward rounding up persons of interest and compelling them to finally answer questions. In addition to those federal subpoenas, there is financial incentive to come forward and talk. The FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for information that breaks the case. In Nashville, Nick Barris, News Channel 5.
And in the IDAHO4 case, there was never a reward, so they weren't able to offer any kind of monetary value for information of anybody to give other information regarding a murder or anything of suspicion. So If you remember, Koberger's parents had to testify at a criminal trial in Pennsylvania, but that was all not talked about very long. And it was pretty much just like, oh, they testified, but nothing to really report here. So let me go ahead and pull up this page. That way I can show you what I've also found regarding this. It says, if you commit a murder that crosses state lines, you can be served a subpoena and prosecuted at the federal level. As a crime that crosses state boundaries falls under federal jurisdiction, meaning federal authorities can investigate and issue subpoenas related to the case. So if there was any other murders that he was suspected in committing, or any kind of other situation that they were kind of thinking, well, he could have done this, then they could have subpoenaed him to testify on his behalf. Maybe where he was, um, did he know the person, any of this stuff. But we don't know if this actually happened or it happened after he was under arrest and locked up. It says key point to remember: federal jurisdiction. When a crime like murder involves crossing state lines, it becomes a federal crime and can be prosecuted in a federal court. So, kind of like living in Washington State, crossing into Moscow, Idaho, committing a quadruple murder, you cross state lines to commit an act. Therefore, it becomes a federal jurisdiction. And this is just an example. This is not a checkoff list. It says if someone kidnaps a victim in one state and then kills them in another, this would likely be considered a federal crime. Investigating agencies, the FBI, the federal agency that would typically handle such investigations. And let's watch and see, when is murder a federal crime. Most of the time, murder is a state crime that is prosecuted, in this case, a Virginia state court. However, there are some circumstances when murder is a federal crime that will be filed in federal court and subject to federal sentencing. The federal crime of murder, according to IBUSC 1111, murder is unlawful killing of a human being with malice aforethought. An individual may be charged with murder if the alleged killing violated federal law. Some alleged murders are tied as federal cases because the victim's identity. These crimes include the murder of a elected or appointed federal government official, a federal judge or law enforcement officer, immediate family member of a federal law enforcement officer. Other alleged murders are tied to federal crime because of the circumstance in which they happen, such as a murder committed to try to influence the outcome of a federal court case. This crime includes killing court officers and jurors. A murder committed during a bank robbery. A murder related to rape, child molestation, or sexual exploitation of children, rape, sexual abuse, or sexual exploitation of minor children in a federal crime. Therefore, any murder committed during the occurrence of these crimes is a federal crime. Drug-related murders, drug violence may be a federal crime, and any murder that occurs may be tried as a federal murder. Some non-alleged murders are tried as federal crimes because where they occurred. These crimes include murders on ships, murders for hire, murders by mail. Depending on the unique facts of the case, a federal murder may be tied as a first-degree murder case or a second-degree murder case. If the government convicts you on a first-degree murder, you may face life in prison or the death penalty. The potential consequence for second-degree murder includes many years in jail up to life imprisonment. Murder defense. This is a federal murder charge does not mean that you will be convicted of murder. Sometimes the government gets it wrong. Some possible defenses include the killing was an accident and you did not act with the intent to kill or commit another federal crime, such as a bank robbery. You acted in self-defense. You acted in a reason of insanity. You weren't the one who committed the crime. Oh. So that tells you that sometimes these type of things happen and there really is no type of nefarious action associated with them, or they aren't so maliciously given out just because the person is associated with it does not mean that they were either the perpetrator, they could have been a victim, or a witness. So just because he was subpoenaed federally does not necessarily mean that he was the perpetrator. It could have meant that he was a victim of a federal crime. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that. Happy Sunday, everybody.